What up? It's your boy, Kurt Robinson, Paradise Paradox. On YouTube, get the views and likes a lot. Like to drop the mic a lot. About to drop this shit while it's hot. Paradise Paradox, check it out. Who is this? What is this? Who am I? Where am I? What kind of life am I leading? That's the questions that I'm going to lead you into in this episode, talking about time and money. In this episode, I present the case that especially for creative individuals, they should quit their jobs or take part-time jobs at least. So we'll get into that in a second. Remember, you can jump onto Facebook, press like on the Paradise Paradox page, jump onto YouTube, press subscribe, press like, leave a comment. Be cool, be friendly, be amazing, and let's get into it. I was thinking the other day, sometimes people tell me that I produce a lot of content that are very productive. Podcasts, music, essays, short stories, weird little blog posts that don't really fit into those categories. And I guess it kind of surprises me every time someone tells me that, because from my perspective, I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of what it means to be productive. Like, it seems like I just spend a lot of time fucking around, figuratively of course, and eventually I produce something. But when I started to analyze it, I thought about some things that perhaps maybe not everybody does, and it led me down a little bit of an interesting thought process, so I'm going to share that with you. The first thing I came up with, I noticed that I start a lot of things. So of course it's good to finish things, it's important to finish things, but a lot of people, I think, are trapped in this place where they don't even start. They don't even sit down to write or sit down to, plan a movie or whatever they're going to come up with. I like to, and this is a habit which I've been slacking a bit lately, but when I wake up in the morning, I like to write 100 words before I do anything else. And it sets a precedent for the day that, hey, yes, today is going to be productive. I'm going to get something interesting done today. I'm going to get some writing done. Another thing which is really simple but really important is just to get the pen moving. So you sit down in front of a blank page and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to write. And you have to come up with something on the spot, and can be a lot of pressure staring at that blank page, gazing you in the face. So what you really have to do, there's not really any way around it. You have to put your pen to the page and start writing something. And you'll find that after about 10 or 20 minutes of this, just writing whatever pops into your head. So maybe, like I mentioned on waking up, maybe you'll write down a dream that you had that morning, and that's just something to get you started. And it's probably not going to be all that interesting when you're getting started, but after a little while, you'll find you start to get into the flow of things, and you'll start to write something interesting. Of course, a lot of people will say to you, and this is a really basic thing, you probably heard it before, that it's good to keep a notepad with you, or these days we have smartphones. Make a note in your smartphone every time you have an interesting idea, and then you can refer back to it later. The really important thing that I wanted to talk to you about is I haven't had a full-time job in about 6 years, and I think a lot of creative types sometimes lose their way. And a lot of people don't have this problem for sure, but a lot of people do. A lot of people will actually, if you look at their time, they will make a day job a priority over their real work. which to me, it kind of seems really ass backwards. Like, how are you going to go and sell 40 hours of your week to some guy who doesn't really care if you ever, maybe he doesn't really care if you ever see your dreams fulfilled or not. Why would you do that? And I guess in some places it's going to be a luxury. I mean, but if you live in a developed nation, it is possible to do this kind of things, and I'll get into that. Looking back over the last 6 years or more of my life, I think that the reason I've been able to do a lot of cool shit is actually because I made that decision to work part-time. So the reason I was able to play poker semi-professionally, learning the game in some detail, and the reason I was able to improve my social skills, like go out to nightclubs and have a great time and meet a lot of women and become a good cook, or at least a decent cook, and become a writer as well. The reason is because I had a lot of time to do it. So it's quite simple. I mean, even if you don't dedicate all that free time that you have to your art, and at least allows you some space, so you have that breathing room and you can take a step back sometimes and actually get something done. I remember I was working in a call center in Melbourne, and one of my colleagues said to me as we're stepping into the elevator, "Oh, what are you studying, Kurt?" And I said, "I'm not studying." And she said, "Oh, that's funny. I thought you were working full part-time." And I said, "Yeah, that's right. I'm working part-time." And I thought it was so funny because she was asking this question with the assumption that part-time meant I had to be a student. Well, I mean, I didn't say this to her, but if I did, it would probably blow her mind and make her frustrated, heartbroken, you know, make her call me a heretic or something. But my priority wasn't going to an office for 40 hours a week to slave away for something like that. Lock myself in a cage for 40 hours a week. My priority was doing cool shit. Shit that I find fulfilling and interesting. And isn't that really what life's about? Isn't that what we're here for? You know, to do something that's like a dream for you, or to make something impressive, make something cool. What happens a lot of the time is people go to these jobs and they work there, you know, they come in every day and they start to get slipped into a little bit of this culture, like they buy into the corporate propaganda. And I don't blame people for creating corporate propaganda, because what they're really trying to do is motivate and inspire their employees, and that can be a good thing. But you got to be careful, because they'll push this stuff on you, and if you don't have a good idea, or as I wrote once, you better be sure of who you are and what you want from yourself, because there's a lot of people who prefer you be someone else. You got to know who you are and what you want out of life, or you're going to get into trouble, because you're going to push in this corporate propaganda into your ears, and you're going to think that you want to chase those carrots and go for that promotion and raise. And if you don't stop to think about it once in a while, you're not going to realize that your dreams have actually been pushed aside for somebody else's. And that would be a damn shame. One thing I noticed about my colleagues, and I guess it's kind of a cliche, you know, it's an oversimplification, it's not always true, but I think sometimes what happens is people go into these jobs and they work 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, and then on the weekend they go out and they spend hundreds of dollars in clubs and bars, trying to forget that they're selling their soul every day of the week. And that's tough. And it's also kind of silly, because if they hadn't been working so much, they wouldn't have needed that kind of release, so they could forget it. And so it's like this weird self-fulfilling cycle of depression and misery and forgetting the whole thing so you can start the week again. It's kind of bizarre. And if you're trapped in that kind of life, you have to look at what's really going on and reconsider it. So the thing is, we're looking at these two very important things, time and money. And my colleagues, a lot of the time, they had neither time nor money, but I had both, because I was working part-time, 25 hours a week, and by being careful with my money, by not spending it excessively on consumer items or alcohol or any number of other things, I was able to live quite a good life, even occasionally making international trips and visiting other countries. And I didn't have to work that hard, and I still had this time to do all these other cool things, things I really wanted to do. It's a question of priorities, because they'll put these promotions and raises in your face sometimes, depending where you work, and try to make it seem like that's what you really want. But if you're like most people, that's actually not what you want, at least in my experience. And I've got a small sample space of friends, and probably skewed, but what I've found in my experience is most people don't really give a shit about promotions, about being the boss hog of the corporate office, getting the corner office, all that type of nonsense. Most people don't really care about that stuff. And even friends of mine who have goals related to their finances, what they really want to do is create something of their own, or learn to invest, or learn to develop a system or a business, so they don't need to work for someone else. So why would you really care that much about a promotion? If you do, that's fine, more power to you, God bless, and enjoy it. But if you're like most people, you probably don't. So don't pretend you do. That's going to get you into a whole bunch of trouble when you're laying on your deathbed looking back over your life, wondering why you didn't take time off to think and spend time with your family, enjoy life, smell the daisies or whatever. That's not a position you want to be in. So take the time now. Be conscious of what you're doing. Be patient. Wait, listen to your mind and listen to your heart and find out what's really important. I know a lot of people are going to say to me, I can't do it. I mean, that's just not possible. It's not that easy for someone to just work part-time. Well, maybe. I mean, I was living in a metropolitan area of one of the most expensive countries in the world. And I worked 25 hours a week, and it was easy. I even worked part-time there when I was making minimum wage. Of course, I was supplementing my income with poker winnings. But it's possible. You can do it. And of course, you have to do things like, if you go out to clubs, of course, you don't want to drink that overpriced alcohol. Drink better and drink less in your home, drinking some craft beer or some fine wine or something. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on weekends or even $50 going out and buying alcohol. That's just a waste of money. And eat out maybe once or twice a week, or if you eat out more, find places that are cheap and have good quality food. I recommend Hare Krishna restaurants because they normally fit that bill. And buy things secondhand, like go to a thrift shop, an op shop, and buy things there, buy your clothes there. Or, a lot of people do this. It's kind of underhanded, but they go out to clothing stores, get fitted, and then they go on the internet and buy those clothes, buy the same clothes for, half the price. That's another way to do it. The thing is, there are ways, and you have to look at where the money is really going. So maybe you need to put together a budgeting plan, or start counting those receipts and seeing where that money is really going. Because a lot of the time you find that you're just blowing it on things that aren't that important. So you have to prioritize. I mean, what is really important, time or money? To me, time is precious. Time is invaluable. Is it for you? And the other thing is, you have to be productive if you want to work part-time. So you have to, when you go to work, you have to really put your heart in. So here in Mexico, I mean, this is the worst for it, because in Mexico, it's part of the culture that when people go to work, they don't really work that hard. They like to sit around and chat and have a few coffees with their buddies and chat with their customers, and they don't really do a lot of work. And that's why I guess Mexicans tend to spend more time in the office or at their jobs than just about any other country in the world. But if you want, I mean, that's a way to do things. But if you want to work part-time, then you really have to find a way to be productive, and you have to find a way to improve your efficiency. And another thing that you should bear in mind is, if you really want to get a decent wage or salary to live on while you're working those small amount of hours, you probably have to change jobs every 1 or 2 years until you build up a comfortable level, because that tends to be the way. Like if you go to a job maybe every year, I remember working at my job in Melbourne, they would my boss would say, well, I love your work, I'm going to recommend that they give you the maximum pay increase, and it was 3%. And I was like, CPI is, or the official inflation rate is 2.6%. So that barely covers inflation. But if you find another job, which I could have done, that you'll probably find that you can find a pay increase which is in the realms of 10 or 20%. So that's the kind of thing you can do. If you want to improve your quality of life, you want to find more time. Of course, a lot of other people will say, well, I'm trying to be responsible. I'm trying to save for a mortgage. That's why I work full time. And to them, I'd say, why the hell would you want a mortgage? That's a really raw deal, especially in Australia. I mean, in some countries, it'll be like 5 years for your mortgage. Maybe you can make that case. In Australia, it tends to be 20 or 30 years for a mortgage. Now, that is a long time. And when you sign that contract, you're not just talking about money, you are talking about time. And you're talking about signing away a large degree of your freedom. I mean, the kind of freedom where you can take 3 months off, go to the Greek islands, lay on the beach for weeks on end, and think about your life. That is the kind of freedom that you're signing away when you agree to a mortgage in general. They get you locked in the job in some cases if the job market's not that good. And I mean, really, most people don't have experience planning like a month in ahead, a month in advance, or even a week. And you want to sign a contract that locks you in for 30 fucking years? That is insane. I mean, you must have a lot of faith in your abilities to handle situations that come up, because how the hell are you going to know what is going to happen in 30 years? I mean, the world is an increasingly uncertain place. So you got to be careful. So maybe you don't really want a mortgage. And if you have a mortgage and a car loan already, I've got to submit this idea to you for your consideration. Maybe, just maybe, you have been had. Maybe you've been tricked. Maybe they sold you on this grand idea of the American dream or the Australian dream, telling you that to own a quarter acre is the best thing in the world, to have your own lot, your own property. And you have to wonder, is it really going to make that much difference to your quality of life? Or is it going to detract from your quality of life? If you have a mortgage and a car loan, I would put it to you that maybe you should actually sell your house and sell your car and think about how to reduce your expenses in your life, or find a way to invest property another way, because there are other ways. And if you look at my interview with Anand Bashanta from last year, episode 89 of this podcast, you can hear him talk about different ways that he controls and accumulates property. So there are other possibilities out there. So if owning a home is really important to you, you don't have to go this mainstream route. You don't have to go this sucker's route that's been told to you in high school, in these public education systems that are out of date by 50 years. You don't have to do that kind of thing. There are other ways. It's better to think and plan than just take the option that's laid out in front of you. Then you might say, well, I really can't do this. I mean, the cost of living where I am is just too high. In that case, consider another option. Expatriate. Go to a country where things are cheap. You could be living in Chiang Mai in Thailand, Medellin, Colombia, here in Guadalajara, in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico City, Acapulco, Puerto Escondido, any number of beautiful locations around the world, really, really cheap. I mean, when I was living in Melbourne, I was paying about 900 Aussies a month for my rent, about 700 US dollars. Here, if I wanted to, I could live on half of that. And people support families on comparable amounts of money. So think about that. You don't have to be bound to the place that you were born in. That's kind of, I like to say sometimes, patriotism is for the poor. Rich people don't really care. They don't hold allegiances to any particular country. They will go where it serves them. And you can get into this in more detail, talking about, I think they call it the 5 flags theory, international man, perpetual traveler, a prior taxpayer, that sort of thing that Jeff Bowick and Doug Casey talk about. That's a possibility too. And that's really the point. Like, there are a lot of possibilities. You don't have to be bound down. I mean, imagine if you were working 20 hours a week here in Mexico online and you're earning about $10 an hour. That's $800 a week. $800 a month. You could live really well for that kind of money. And it is an option. I mean, if you speak English, you can go on sites like Cambly and start teaching English on italki. You can find sites where you can do transcriptions and things with that Amazon service. I think they call it Mechanical Turk. You can become a web developer or a programmer. Even if you already live in a developing nation, you can do this kind of thing, work online, and earn what is, for your country, a huge amount of money working part-time. These are real possibilities. I mean, we live in this era of abundance. The internet is right there for you, and you can practice this, what they call lifestyle arbitrage. So you earn in dollars and spend in pesos, and that makes your life, well, if you do it the right way and everything comes into alignment, that's going to make your life so much easier, and you're going to have more time to do that cool shit that I talked about. So what I'd really love if you were to think about this. Now, when I say think about it to a lot of people, they'll get back to me after 2 seconds and they'll say, I thought about it, and this is my opinion, this is my position. Well, no, I mean, thinking about something, really thinking about something, considering, contemplating, meditating on something takes time. It may take weeks, it may take months, it may take the rest of your life. But what you really need to think about, if you want to have a cool life, you need to think about your priorities. What do you really want? Do you want to spend time with your family? Do you want to learn to sew, learn to cook? Do you want to do things that are really fulfilling? Do you want to make a legacy? Or do you want to create something that is cool to you? Because that's what life is really about. You're too special, you're too wonderful, and you're too clever to spend your time in a cage, locked up in a box, singing on command. That's bullshit. That is for fools. That is not for you. Life is for you, and it's available for the taking. So please think about it, and please take it. Look at your priorities. Find out what your priorities are. Maybe you need to just take a few weeks off work just to think about them. That's the value of time. You can think about things. You can really think about them. And you can find out what really is important to you. And then you can start to plan ways to bring your life into alignment with your priorities. And that is beautiful. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, you can jump on to patreon.com/paradiseparadox and you can give a monthly contribution to help us out, just like $5, $10 to show your support on there. Jump on to steemit.com and you can follow on there, steemit.com/@paradise-paradox, steemit.com/@churdzu, CHURDTZU, to follow me on there, to look at some of the writing that I was talking about. And remember to jump onto Facebook, press like on Facebook. Go ahead and do it. Just wave your dick all over your touch screen until you press that like button. Jump onto youtube.com and subscribe, press upvote or whatever the fuck it is. Leave a comment, have a discussion with me. Let's open the discourse and talk about these ideas. If you think I'm crazy, then go ahead and tell me. If you think I'm absolutely right, then please stroke my ego. And what else? Facebook, YouTube, I don't know what else to tell you. But have a great day. Take life by the balls or by the titties, depending on your sexual preference. And lots of love. Goodbye.